Hey gang, welcome to Line Rider Talks, where I talk about Line Rider for around 20 minutes. Hopefully, maybe less. It just depends on how fast I get through it. Today we're going to be watching Incito, breaking it down. Maybe I'll throw in a lesson here or there. This track was made December 19th, 2009 by Aspie, who was for a long time the god of quirk until probably Cramwood came around. Potentially Hedge, he was also big at the time. Cramwood was kind of later, I guess. Now this track was made for Hedge's contest that he announced with Vision, with the goal of being innovative and creative, just general cool stuff. And this track actually won the contest by a landslide, and for a long time was hailed to be one of the greatest tracks ever. I still think it is pretty good. I think time has done a bit of a number on this though, especially with LRA. Everything's so easy to make look good as well. Now Aspie was actually a really good YouTube description maker. He actually has like the motives for this track and everything all in the description. He gave the download for the song, which I thought was kind of funny. It actually helped me to gain the song. But we're going to watch this track through, and we're going to talk about his intentions, and just the cool stuff. So we're going to get this on the road. I'll see you on the flip side after we watch this, and yeah. That song is truly jamming. Now, I have a few topics to talk about while I break this down. I want to point out, first and foremost, how well synced this is for the time. Each section is pretty well divided with the song, which was pretty hard at the time. I think... Well, Blue Champion, I think, came out in 2010. That was really good on syncing. But back in the Flash days, syncing was really hard, because even if your computer ran the game at, full speed, you're still losing around a second of like real time every like 40 seconds or so, every 30 seconds. So it's really hard to, because like you had to play the song in like iTunes or whatever you play your song in, and then play the track at the same time, and like just hope they stay synced. And then when you get like the perfect recording done, when you're in the editing, the track is in real time, but the song was fit to like the track's slightly lagginess. So it was just generally an afterthought back then, because it really wasn't too controllable with the tools on hand. But we are going to go through this right now. Give you some cool stuff here. Dang, this song is jamming. Really sets the stage. I always like this intro part. Like, I don't really know why I liked it now, because it's really simple. I also want to point out this is a ASDF flanule, string, and then hand. I never even noticed this until like I downloaded this and ran it through LRA with the contact points. He probably knew though, because I mean you can see his hand. I just thought that was cool. This track had a lot of cool stuff that either hadn't been done before, or at least not like this grand of a scope. This track was truly mind-blowing. Like it may not really look like much today, but back then this was amazing. I like how much granule, flanule play this track has. This whole first section is loaded with them, and they're all cool in their own way. Dual fling. I'm pretty sure, because there were ASDFs, which are alternating single direction flings. I mean, this is a good example, actually. Yeah. So you got string, one frame, nose, next frame, string again, nose, string. It's basically just alternating points every frame, and it's usually really powerful because of the recoil on each point. You just like, because like right here, the string recoils back, so it's not hit by these, but the nose recoils back from, I guess, the previous thing. Like, just think about it as like two simultaneous flings that are offset by one frame, and that's what it is. I feel like everyone probably knows that though. Although ASDFs really haven't been around lately. Yeah, that's cool. I think it's funny, this whole curve here wasn't even used. This track has some good manuals too, for being all blue, but that was sort of common back then. Like, it wasn't anything too crazy. This is one of my favorite parts. This like whole shoulder granule thing. Really cool stuff. Like, up until like a few years ago, I had no idea how like he could, because like Bosch is just like flush with the line, but his head is poking through, and I never knew how that was possible. And like nobody really even did this kind of thing until I think Cirrus by Splash, his latest one, I believe. I don't know if it's called Cirrus. I think it is. But he didn't even use shoulder, he used the butt. But it had the same effect. And then this part here is cool. Flips it right off, right here. Inverse shoulder fling. One of my favorite things. So hard to execute in a balanced manner. Somehow so simple back in the Flash days. Probably because these are, I mean, these can't be anywhere near full power. I guess, I don't know. Okay. Put ahead with this. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna go back for a second here. This is like one of my favorite parts in this track, flow-wise. Probably ends around here. I was saying that he has like a lot of his intentions in the description. He actually stated that like because of the fact that the contest was for innovation and like new stuff, he sacrificed a lot of flow for cool tricks, and I can respect it in that kind of situation. You know, flow isn't, I mean, it's important, but don't get lost in the flow, because if your track is just all Bosch moving fluidly through really like safe, like simple tricks, then it's not going to be as good as something with cool stuff that he still like flows through. But I guess it's kind of situational. It's also interesting to see this kind of track with little to no stacking. I mean, some of the ASDFs have it, but back in the day, stacking was really rare for something you see like in every track now. This is a cool one. Inverse hand and fakie. These are really hard. At least I think so. I don't think I've ever made one. I'm probably just overstating the hardness. I don't know. I like this whole transition. Sorry about but that I don't know what my LRA has to be like laggy. Like that whole foot thing. I don't know how common these were, cause like I remember a lot of tracks, but I never like remember when they were released, cause I'm always surprised to like hear, oh wow, that was released like 10 years ago. Wow, but these are cool. These second peg things. I don't know how common they were back then, but it's a good way to gain speed. This is cool. More second peg stuff. I don't know why he made this huge thing, but I think it's because I think it was for syncing intentions. Cause like just watch the whole section. See, look at that proto syncing. Very impressive. Cool thing to point out. This is actually a really clean ASDF. Like, I mean, Aspie was ahead of the game. You know, it's fair to say that he, like, you know, he definitely knew what he was doing. It's just crazy to think that like he was one of like the 3 or 4 people that knew what they were doing at like this level of trick, which now is so simple. Like this, I think, just comes naturally. Like, well, if you're making the full power for like perfect flings, this kind of stuff just happens when you do that. But like he actually had to go and like do this without like, you know, knowing what is max power or not. Like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I'm sure most people will know what I mean though. I like this part. A cool thing about this, I noticed this too with hit test on. This is actually like every other frame tail, just because of how he arcs around the curve there. So like this is technically like, what is this? It would be nose and then shoulder tail. So like nose, shoulder, tail, nose, shoulder, and tail. Probably didn't even know that was happening, honestly, because I don't. Yeah, hit test. I mean, this was in 6.2. Like this was before all the, like even the Flash, like the good Flash versions came out. I'm pretty sure. Like I think they were just starting in 2009. And even then, like they were still primitive. Like 6.3, nobody remembers that. It had like the gray lines for some reason. Just of a lost era. That's a nice sync there. Oopsies, I meant to flag. Yeah. Okay. Hyperspeed. Okay. So we got flow. We talked about flow. Right here we got pacing. That's what I wrote down on my notepad because I kept forgetting what I was supposed to be talking about. The pacing really works with like the syncing. Like track pacing is really important, more than I feel like people realize. But I feel like it is kind of like a later. It's kind of like a more specific thing, like something you kind of play around with after you've learned all like the other stuff. But syncing and pacing basically work hand in hand. I mean, any syncing, like over major sections of a track, kind of give the track a nice pacing. You kind of set you up for the next stage. And this track has a pretty good amount of pacing. Like in the beginning, it's kind of like it kind of throws all the cards on the table, you know. Well, not immediately, you know. You got the whole intro, but then it gets slowly more crazy. All this goes around here, all this cool stuff. Then you have like the relax, big long swooping manuals, and then we're back in basically the beginning again, where it's crazy, and that's where we are right now. And then more like swooping, large, non-compact stuff, and then we get into like the crazy ending part. But even like that, like this is kind of like a crazy part, and then it slowly dies down right to the end. And you never want to end a track on the high point. You want to slow it down a bit, kind of make them expect that, oh yeah, here comes the ending. You don't want to make them disappointed that like it ends right at the highest intensity point in the track. I like this butt fling. Like when this came out, this is like the only thing in here that I actually knew how it was made, but I wasn't really that good back then, so you know, I mean, nobody really was, except for like, I mean, the general populace back then was about, I mean, like before all the information was relatively or readily available, like stuff was hard. I'm surprised this worked with these huge lines. I was always this is like the most smooth manual I've ever seen. Okay. This is one of my favorite parts. That little flipperoo there. It's even got decent rotation. What was this? This is a, I guess, dual. I don't know. You know, sometimes our terms don't cover everything cleanly. This is like a one half of the alt fling is a dual alt fling, and the other half is just a single hand. What is this like? Okay, I think it's a hand alt fling with string every other thing. Like this is like an ASDF alt fling. Like that's definitely weird. I don't know how to categorize this. That's really balanced flat tail. Interesting. I like to point out that this track is all blue. That's another relic of a lost time. I mean, every track, well, every quirk used to be all blue. I mean, it started out as a like kind of like a, oh yeah, look, this is no red, no balancing. We just did this with our own skill. And then I feel like it kind of turned into like, I'm too lazy to use red because it's just more clicking. And I mean, in a quirk track, you don't really need red. At least back then, like, if you're making just like a bunch of flings and stuff, like, you don't really need red lines. This is, ooh, this was fucking mind-blowing. Dude, okay, I'm sorry, I keep pressing O instead of I for flag. See, watching it like, honestly, watching it like double speed like that is pretty much what this looked like back then. It was incomprehensible. Now this inverse second position foot. We're gonna watch this boy. Now this wasn't like the first fling by this. If I recall correctly, Raphael did like a small thing with it, but I mean, it was like 5 lines or something, not a loop of like 100. To this day, I'm pretty sure the only other person that's done it is just Sheldon. I think in Valence 2. Don't quote me on that. It's definitely in one of his tracks. But this actually requires some balance, because like they're not perfect wells. Like they're not grabbing them right immediately like that. They're like this. Like they're kind of like slowing them down, and they're all powered. Like they're not full powered. They're not like minimum powered. They're just right to balance them out. Just really amazing stuff. This is a, what do they call these? I honestly don't remember what these are called. It's just where like you grab the first iteration and then none else. Well, I guess that. Well, it just like ends up that he's not, like that was a string well, but his string isn't like on the line. I think like no contact wells is what they called, or what they're called. Yeah, this is a whole thing of them. I think as long as the last iteration isn't on it, then he isn't on it. Okay, the contact point isn't like connected, but he still gets it from like the invisible frames, you know. Okay, then we're gonna flag over here. Actually, this is really cool. I feel like granules, flanules aren't used as much as they should be. I guess they are kind of used in, like, honestly, a lot of manual tracks. They're just not, like, really pronounced. Like, people try to hide the lines now, which is, it's fair. It's just like a different meta now. Like, a lot of this stuff can be explained. It's just like it really was different back then. What people thought was good and entertaining. I mean, I still think tracks back then have, like, every track has like its own values and positives. Okay, then we get into the ending part here. A lot of tumbling, all the quirk basically. I always thought this was kind of, he probably was pressed for time and just had to make a bunch of stuff really quickly because the contest, it was made for a contest. It had a deadline and everything. Just like a lot of random stuff. We got a cool tail alt fling into a dual, what is this, shoulder, foot, tail. Oh no, it's not an alt, wait, is it an alt fling? Yeah, and then shoulder. Yeah, it's okay, it's a shoulder alt fling, every other frame, tail, and foot. Maybe not foot? It definitely has tail. It definitely looks cool in full speed. He's like, it's going through like a fan, getting annihilated. Yeah, see, like a lot of this has actually pretty lackluster movement for what's going on. I feel like alt quirk was kind of harder back then though, because you couldn't like see, oh okay, I can make a line here. Well, that's a bad example. It's way easier now to see his, where you can and can't place lines. Third pause, foot fling. See, this is one that they didn't balance out too right. Like if he made this a few more lines longer, he'd be spinning counterclockwise and not keeping with the flow. Like this one could have been made stronger, it would have been fine, but I think the fact that he's in fakie kind of hurts it. Actually, no, this is... Oh, okay, it's a hand. Okay, single line ASDF. I wonder if he even pointed that out. I guess it's not every frame. Like, it doesn't always work. I always hated that. Like, single flat slide curve is like, dude, come on. I like this whole area. This is a good flow. And then this tube. I don't understand how he made this so tight. Well, I do, but he made it so tight because this doesn't even do anything. But back then, we didn't know that. He's so cramped. It kind of looks like it actually does go that tight. And then here we are at the ending. Right with the song. Yeah, so in retrospect, pretty cool track. I still think it's pretty cool now. It may not be as appealing to like newer players who weren't around at the time, but that's kind of a curse that most tracks have that were released, over 4 or 5 years ago. The introduction of LRA really, any like advanced version, like even like the advanced Flash versions changed the game. But okay, I forgot what I was gonna say. I think I actually wrapped that tangent up anyway. Yeah, so that was the breakdown of this track. Look, it looks like a little smiley face. Hi. Alright, this was the first episode and of track breakdowns, of LR talks, and I'll see you guys next time.